Hello and welcome to podcast number 49 from the Self-Publishing Formula.
Two writers, one just starting out, the other a bestseller. Join James Blatch and Mark Dawson and their amazing guests as they discuss how you can make a living telling stories. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
It's just like David Letterman. If you're watching on video, I should say, if you're listening on audio, all our podcasts hopefully sound the same, completely formatted and easy for you to listen to. If you watch on video, you will know that we are gradually working our way towards a very presentable, enjoyable little, like a TV program. And we're almost where we want to be now. We've got our own little studio, which is Mark's office in Salisbury. We've got a load of cameras. I'm basically David Letterman now.
Yes, I don't know who that makes me. I'll be Will Smith today.
Yeah. Oh, I suppose I'm James Corden now, am I? I don't know who took over from Letterman. Whoever.
Good question.
Some guy richer and funnier than me. Well, richer. Anyway, so the point is that we can have a nice relaxed chat and bring you your valuable podcast. And on that note, I mention it from time to time, but we are acutely aware. We think a lot about what goes into the podcast. We are aware that there's lots of competition for your ears and your listening time and watching time on YouTube videos. So when we put together a podcast, we always want you to be able to take value away from it and for it to improve your lives in terms of your author career. This episode, number 49, is no exception. I guarantee to you that if you're an indie author, you are going to get value out of this episode. And so we should say probably what it's about. Really, it's a hangover from the detailed 3-part series we did on mailing lists, Mark. And in the middle of that, we did an interview with a guy called Ian Sutherland. And when we heard the interview, we decided this needs its own episode, right?
We did, yeah. So I listened to it after you did the interview, and it's a good 50 minutes worth of value. And we decided that we could edit it down a bit, but it wouldn't be a good thing to do because there's so much packed into it. It's just better to put it out there and let people listen. So we're really pleased to put this together. The really cool thing that Ian's done is also put together a PDF for listeners to download, which summarizes some of the key takeaways and some additional points that will help you to really optimize your Twitter platform, especially when it comes to finding subscribers and selling books.
Yeah, so it's all about Twitter. I'll give you the download link now. We've got a PDF which has got a fantastic resource that Ian's very kindly put together for us. It's got all the links of everything he mentions in there and all those top tips you're going to hear about. And this is organic Twitter. So to give you the headline, this is free, what you can do for free on Twitter to increase your followers. And he's got 100,000 followers now following his own techniques. He's written a book on the subject, so he's an authority on it. To get the PDF, if you go to selfpublishingformula.com/download 49, and you can get that PDF. We'll give that URL away during the end of the podcast. Now, during the interview, I should say, I think we gave out a different URL during the interview. It was my idea that we were going to put this somewhere else. We'll make sure that's live as well, whatever it is, don't worry. But at download 49 at selfpublishingformula.com. So Mark, before we get into the interview, a quick catch up of where we are. You've been offline a little bit from SPF on and off over the last few weeks because you've been putting together another episode in the life of John Milton. Is this the one where he finally cross-genders?
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, it is,
I thought it was. So, and he looks good in skirts, doesn't he? He's a guy who can pull that off.
He's got the legs for it. Yeah. So you're very, very pleased about that. It's finished it in first draft on Friday, which was what I was aiming for. So it's as we record this, it's with my proofreader in Canada. She'll be looking through it. I get it back tomorrow, so Tuesday, and then it will go out to my advanced team and my copy editor for a 2-week period. And then after that, we're looking to go live on the 15th of February. That's the plan at the moment. So I've done a bit of outreach to my list. They're very excited to hear this is coming, because it's been a while since I've done a Milton book. So really excited. Launches are always fun, and obviously make a big spike in that month's earnings. So quite looking forward to getting that out there next month.
And when did you start this book?
I started writing it probably early November. So, but obviously we were busy. Actually, before that, it would be September or October, I guess. But because we were so busy putting the 101 course together, I couldn't focus on it as much as I normally would. So, this January has been kind of head down, finish it off. And yeah, I'm pleased with it. It's 80,000 words. And as I mentioned in previous podcasts, I also found that I unintentionally written the next 20,000 words of the next book. So I'll be jumping across to that. Might even start that later this week. The next book with a good 20,000 word head start. So that's always pleasing.
I'm full of jealousy. In terms of my book, I've had a couple of interesting, fun trips. So in December, I visited an actual RAF Vulcan, the 1960s nuclear-capable bomber, 4-engined, and I was entertained by the guys who look after the last flying version of this XH-558 in Doncaster in England. They let me into the cockpit, and I did silly little things like sit in a seat and look over my shoulder to see where I could see and whether they could see each other, because I'd written in my mind that this guy had just exchanged looks with somebody who he's friends with in the back of the jet. I needed to know that was possible, and actually found out from the angles I had them originally it wasn't possible, so I make those sort of small changes. The sort of thing that I know somebody's going to pick me up on in the book. Yesterday I had a little drive around because, funnily enough, and it's totally coincidentally, that my book is centred geographically in this exact area where we are now, where Mark lives. As I say, complete coincidence. I started writing this book 10 years ago. So I had a little drive around the villages of Porton and Amesbury, around Boscombe Down, for where the field, where C&D are going to be, and where the camp is and so on. So that was useful for me. But as I keep saying, I'm labouring at the moment, finding it hard going. Every time I sit down, I spend a lot of time going back over what I've done and slowly move forward, and I'll find I've written 500 words in an hour rather than doing much more than that. But we are getting there with that, and so I'll keep you updated. I'll do more on my book. We have got an interview. We recorded my feedback session with my editor. We'll polish that and turn that around for a future podcast episode, and I'll keep the blogs coming out shortly. I want to thank you to everybody who's signed up for my list. I've got 144 now, so it's nearly 100 more from when we started talking about it the other week, which is brilliant. I hope you enjoy my emails. I'm going to do a couple more emails. I've got some more things to talk about, including that trip to the Vulcan in the UK in future emails. So thank you for signing up to my list. Okay, right, let's get you some value, right? That's what we promised. So Ian Sutherland, expert on Twitter. Like I say, we talked about paid advertising. We normally say about organic social media, certainly with Facebook, that really your options are much more limited than they used to be, because people like Mark Zuckerberg have worked out that they can make money through charging you access to the audience rather than you being able to do it organically. But Twitter is still open as long as you know what to do, and Ian Sutherland is a man who knows what to do. So without further ado, let's hand over to Ian.
My name's Ian Sutherland, and I'm a crime fiction author. I write a series of thrillers with a single character called Brody Taylor, and he is a computer hacker, so there's a technology element that flows through all the stories in my thrillers, and the most recent one, Taking Up Serpents, came out in October last year.
Okay, and before we move on, you're a techie guy yourself?
Yeah, I have a background in technology, hence the write what you know. So right. Although I'm not a computer hacker, let's be clear about that. But I have a good background in technology, and that's what's led me to write the thrillers I have in the way that I have. But it's also what's led me into taking on Twitter and social media in such a technology-driven way.
Okay, yeah. So just in case the NSA are listening in on this, you're definitely not a computer hacker. And there's nothing to see here. Okay, good. Well, look, let's move on to the meat of this. Social media obviously is one of the channels, sort of multi-channeled within itself, the broad term social media, that people use as a funnel for finding their readers. And it's a complex area, and it's broadly divided, I guess, between kind of organic, what we used to call organic, and paid. And then we all know that there's been this shift towards paid because the people who own these platforms have worked out how they're going to make their money, and that being able to contact 1,000 friends very easily for free is much more difficult than it used to be. So we talk a lot about putting money into very targeted advertising campaigns and doing those carefully and checking your ROI. What's exciting about what you've come to us with is potentially some workarounds which are going back to those days of being able to use these platforms organically for free, if you like, and finding positive results in terms of finding readers. Is that more or less where you're coming from?
Very nice summary. Yes. So let's be clear. So I use Twitter organically. I don't use any of the paid advertising features, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, this morning. But in regard to Facebook, like Mark, I'm also a member of the SPF community, and I've taken the Facebook ads course and applied those principles. So I do both in terms of trying to reach my readers and drive book sales. But all the way through, even before I discovered Mark and advertising on Facebook, I have been using Twitter quite aggressively and really investigated it quite significantly, and learned a lot of best practice strategies from other, outside of the author community, from other parts of the social media world. And I've put all of those techniques together, and I started to get real results. And by real results, I mean driving engagement with readers, with networking in the community, right through to getting reviews and even book sales. Okay, but my number one view on Twitter is that it's nowhere near as good for driving book sales as doing advertising on Facebook. That said, all of the other things are really important. Having a big platform to reach people, to engage with people, and to drive awareness is just as important. And so I can do that through Twitter.
Yeah, and I did the Twitter module as part of our course, and I would concur completely with that. We worked really hard at it. We did everything in terms of optimization, and I would say 80% of my module is really about trying to optimize it rather than get it going, because that's the only area you can try and get Twitter working for you. And even then, we have had some results, but we've found it easier to get results with higher value items like the course than we have with lower value items like the book. And my instinct is, and I think I said this in the course, that Twitter is geared up for bigger corporations. It's paid advertising platform than it is for small users, whereas Facebook works very nicely for that. So I think we found the same thing there. That's not I wouldn't rule out paid Twitter advertising forever, and it's definitely worth, because these platforms change all the time. But where we are now, if you've got something that's going to get us results on Twitter without using the paid advertising platform, we're all ears.
Okay, so what I did, I worked all this out about let's say 18 months ago, and I was starting to get some significant results. And in the end, I was talking to other authors about this. I go to author meetups and those kind of things. I'm an active member of the Alliance of Independent Authors, and quite a few people said to me, Ian, why don't you just write this down? Because what you've got here, there's definitely some secret sauce. So in the end, I did, and I wrote a book called Advanced Twitter Strategies for Authors. That was published in April 2015, so it's well over a year old now. And although some of the tools I recommend, they're all still active, but some of the things have changed, and some of the pricing has changed. All of the techniques are completely still valid. Okay, I've written down in that book. And so that the order of events, there's a whole pile of things you can do on Twitter, but the first thing to do is to grow your follower base. Okay, so the more followers that you have, the bigger your reach will be whenever you tweet, okay, and whenever you retweet others. So that's the big thing. It's also the most visible thing. So if you're trying to build an author platform and have some kind of credibility amongst your peers, or if you're trying to get a book deal and people say, well, show us how many Twitter followers you have, all of those kind of things, then a large follower account works. I have 2 Twitter accounts. Okay, so I have my fiction account, which is Ian Sutherland, and that's got over 100,000 followers on it. And I have my non-fiction account, which is Ian H. South, which has just over 50,000 on it. So you can build these to quite significant.
Just to put that in perspective, 100,000 followers. I've been a BBC reporter. I've got a podcast, relatively high profile in small areas, and my Twitter following's not at 1,000 yet. But I've done nothing in terms of trying to boost it. But if you do nothing, if you sit there and do your job, if you like, it doesn't get you very far. So you do obviously need something applied that you're going to talk to us about. And let me just drop into the conversation now. Some of this is going to be reasonably complicated, but Ian has brilliantly done us a couple of really, really good instructional, detailed PDFs that we're going to give away as part of this podcast, absolutely for free. So all you need to do is go to selfpublishingformula.com/Twitter Ian. Twitter Ian sounds like an insult, but it's not. So TWITTERIAN, Twitter Ian, and you can download those. But yeah, we'll give that address away a little bit later as well. But Ian, yeah. So how have you done this?
Well, hold on. I knew an electrician once called Ian, and he was called Electric Ian. So I think you've just given me a new nickname.
There you go.
So thank you. So how have we done this? So there's a whole things that go in concert together. So let me just walk you through some of those. So in terms of the number one thing that you can do to grow your follower account, the number of people, because the whole point of someone following you is not something you can control. Someone has to actively choose to follow you, okay? And why someone will follow you will be for lots and lots of different reasons. It could be because you're tweeting something interesting, could be because you retweeted them, could be because you liked one of their tweets. But the most effective way to have someone follow you is if you follow them in the first place, okay? So the more people that you follow, the more likely you are to get followers back. There's no reason for it other than it's kind of an unwritten rule of etiquette on Twitter. Okay, people generally will follow back. The rule of thumb is anywhere between 10 and 40% of the people that you follow will follow you back within a few days. Okay, so the secret to growing your follow account is to follow more people.
How many? Okay. There is a hard limit, isn't it? How many people you can follow? Is it 2,000?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of limits. So there's if you try and follow more than the official number is 1,000, but if you go anywhere near that, you're in danger. If you try and follow more than 1,000 people in a day, Twitter will step in and stop you and probably block your account. Okay, so there's that limit. There's a second limit, which is, and this is what keeps it interesting. If you have your follower count has to be within 10% of the people that you follow. So if you've already followed 5,000 people, but the amount of people that follow you isn't within 10% of that, like 4,600 or whatever it might be, then Twitter will not let you follow another person, okay, until either you unfollow a load of people and bring it back down, or until you wait and a load of people follow you and you catch up, okay. So there's a 10% rule. There is something though, up until the first 5,000 followers, that rule doesn't really apply. It only really kicks in at the 5,000 mark. It used to be 2,000, but it's now 5,000.
Okay.
So up to 5,000, you can just keep following people as long as you don't aggressively follow more than 1,000 people a day. And even then, I'd never recommend that. I'd recommend at most 600 or 700. Okay. And then up to 5,000, but then at that point you need your follower count to be catching up. Okay. So following is the number one way to attract more followers. Okay, it's really straightforward. But then it comes down to, well, who do you follow? Okay, because that's important. There's no point just following everyone blindly, because as authors we want the people who follow us to have some interest in what we do. Okay, so the advice I give in the book is to to find some role models. Okay, and by a role model I mean someone who's an author like you. I'm a thriller author, so find another thriller author, maybe Mark Dawson. Okay, and then choose and then look at his followers and start following them. Okay, and the logic being, if someone has chosen to follow Mark, okay, then they're interested, but I mean, they may be interested in Mark for other reasons, of course, because of all the things Mark does. But there's lots of thriller authors out there, and so then if they follow you back, hopefully it's because there's some relevance. Now you'll always get some percentage of your follower base that probably isn't relevant, and so on. But it overall, it's generally targeted. So the targeting is one way of doing it, and the other way is to search on the hashtags that people tweet. Okay, so if you look at people who tweet with the hashtag thriller, hashtag mystery, hashtag crime, for me, it could be romance, could be anything, depending on what genres you write in, then you can follow those people because they're more likely to be interested in you as an author. Okay, so following other people and then targeting who it is you follow by really following followers of role models is the ideal way to do this.
Okay, a couple of quick questions. One is, in terms of etiquette, I'm guessing it's not a polite thing to do to follow a load of people, wait for them to follow you back and then sneakily unfollow them. Are you advising
that happens a lot?
Yeah.
I'm not recommending that at all. The
No,
minute
okay.
somebody follows me, I will never unfollow them unless they unfollow me first. It's
Okay.
really straightforward. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the reverse happens to you. People will follow you, and then you follow them back, and then they will unfollow you. So there are people who do this all the time, and it's just crazy. It doesn't achieve anything.
No.
So no, I'm not recommending that in the slightest.
Okay. My other question is about automation, because you're talking about some big numbers here. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were at the top end of that following a day, 600 or 700 people, I mean, have you got enough
Takes some
minutes in a
time,
day
right?
to do that?
Yeah, exactly. So if you do this in the Twitter GUI, so if you're on your phone, but even if you're on a browser on your computer, and you try and do it through that Twitter web application, it would probably just take you a day to follow 300 or 400 people. I mean, it's not really helpful. So there are third-party applications that help you with this, and they can do two things. One, the two I recommend in the book, one is called Tweepy, and the second one is called Managed Flitter. Okay, and there are other tools that do this too. And what they do is they'll allow you to search out, exactly as I've described, the followers of role models or people who are tweeting in certain hashtags or searching on bios or whatever it might be. It'll give you a big long list, and then you get your finger over your thumb and you start clicking, and as you click it moves up and your mouse moves over the next one and so on. Okay, the reason there's no real automation other than doing that, simply because the terms of service on Twitter prevent you from doing truly automated following. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to be a human pressing the button on a computer to make a follow. So all these tools have done is to make it as easy as possible to do that. Okay, so that you can do many at one time.
Okay, and I think that makes sense, because I think from a Twitter user point of view, you don't want to make it too easy for people just to mass follow thousands of people. You want them at least to have done some work into working out that you are in a group that might be of use to them, and vice versa. So
exactly. There were some
fair
tools about 3 or 4 years ago that did do all of this kind of stuff truly on autopilot. And but they're all gone. They've all been banned by Twitter. The Twitter terms of service and through on putting apps through their API stops all those things happening anymore. So that doesn't happen anymore.
Okay, so ultimately we're talking about trying to get people onto our mailing list, and we'll move on to that in a little bit. But is this the basis, the foundation of the technique that you've used to get to 100,000 followers, Ian?
That's the most effective way of attracting followers, but there are others. Okay, and I recommend doing all of these things. So the other things that you should do, one is tweet a lot. Okay, it's really straightforward, but tweet a lot. Okay, and I recommend some ways of doing that. So number one, obviously you want to tweet about yourself, of course. Okay, but if all you do is tweet buy my book, buy my book, buy my book over and over and over again, you'll get unfollowed than ever. Okay, so actually the skill is to add value to other people who might be following you, and I do that through tweeting lots of interesting content that exists on the internet. Okay, either stuff that I found manually and organically, like my own blog posts from the past. I have those set up in a queue that drip feeds these out on a regular basis. Okay, or the other way. Mark uses Meet Edgar, and a few people use that. I don't actually recommend that in the book, not because it's a bad tool, just it wasn't around when I wrote the book. But Meet Edgar has pre-populated queues of content that you can then sign up to, and then it will drip feed those out onto your timeline. So that's quite interesting. So some of the hard work's been done.
Can I just check that?
And then the best way.
You dropped out briefly, but I think we got the gist of it. That if you just constantly say buy my book, people are going to unfollow you. I think we understood that. Did you say then what you do use for scheduling tweets if you don't use Meet Edgar?
So the tool I use is a tool called Social Oomph. Okay, which is it's been around a while, and the reason there's lots of tools. I mean, Hootsuite, Buffer, and so on. Okay, there's lots of these tools, but the reason I like Social Oomph is it takes a queue-based approach, which means that you can fill a queue, and you can have multiple queues in Social Oomph. So you can fill your queues. So I have a promotional queue. So those buy my book tweets do exist. They're a bit more sophisticated. I have them as review quotes. So they're more subtle and they're less pushy. I don't want to be spamming people. Then I have a queue of my old blog posts, evergreen type blog posts that people that will drive traffic back to my website, and then I have a queue of interesting genre-related stuff, and then I have the best queue, which is one that's automatically filled from whenever websites that I've chosen write a new article or a blog post. Okay, and so the way that's done is through RSS feeds. So I mean, another technical term, but RSS is an old school internet technique where you can use a reader, an application on your computer or your phone, tell it about the RSS feeds of websites you're interested in, and rather than visit all of those websites, every time they post something new, it just appears in your reader like a news feed. Okay, that was the original use of it. But what we do with Social Oomph is you tell Social Oomph about those RSS feeds, and then every time something is posted on those websites, it pops it into my queue on Social Oomph in the format of a tweet. It has the title of the blog post or the article, has the URL link to it, and I add a hashtag. Okay, and that's all done automatically, fills up a queue, and then those drip out over time onto my timeline. Okay, so, and obviously the websites I've chosen are relevant to me as a thriller author in the case of my fiction account, or about social media in my non-fiction account.
Well, this is starting to explain some things that haven't. So in our previous existence with our video production company, I used to write a blog, and a couple of posts just took off and caught people's eyes, and to this day, I mean, they're a year old, to this day I will get 2 or 3 retweets a day for those posts. And I think it's because the person who's retweeted it has put it onto their blog. There's an RSS feed for somebody who follows them and does exactly what you've just said, and there's probably 1,000 retweets of a couple of those blog posts on how much to pay for video production type blogs.
So the point of doing all of that then is it makes my timeline and the people who apply the techniques from the book roughly end up being around 80% adding value. I mean, truly adding value to people, because you're tweeting fresh, interesting content, okay, which kind of gives you buys you the right to do 20% of promotional tweets, and even those are done in a kind of, well, the way I do it certainly is in a more subtle way, so that you're not just pushing and saying buy my book. So that's kind of getting that 80-20 balance, I think, is really, really important. Otherwise, you just turn people off.
And choosing those subject areas. So for a thriller writer, you're choosing areas about other thriller writers or books, or are you choosing things about the actual detail of like espionage or?
So what I do is I look for websites that do book reviews, or particularly if they do thriller books, and there are some of those out there, and blogs. So book review sites are really good. Other authors who post a lot that I find interesting, I choose their websites, and so on and so on. So there's a whole. Basically, it's any website that you would personally go to, and occasionally you see that you're reading a post and it says "click to tweet." Well, if you would do that on a regular basis on that website, it's a good candidate for an RSS feed into Social Oomph to go out automatically on your behalf.
Okay. So before we move on, at what point did you look at Twitter and thought this is an underutilized tool? Because the sort of thing you're talking about, the energy that you're putting into it, is far and away beyond above what most people are doing. When did this happen for you? So
what happened to me is I published my first 2 books back in 2014, August 2014. And I did all of the best practice that was around at the time. I had a first novel, I had a prequel novella, which I made free, perma-free. In those days, I wasn't doing enough to build my mailing list. I fixed that since, and we'll come on to that. And Facebook posts weren't really working. It was around the time when they were starting to play with the algorithm, so that if you put stuff on your page, it wouldn't necessarily be seen with people. And I just looked at Twitter. The great thing about Twitter is that there is no restrictions. You can follow anyone, and anyone can follow you. All right, there is no restriction. So from that perspective, it kind of made sense to me that it's a good area to focus in on. Plus, it is more now, but in those days it was less image intensive. And something like Instagram is all about the image, or Pinterest, which I'm no good at graphics. So, and so it was because of all of those things that I ended up focusing in on it. And I first tried to look at scheduling tweets, and I looked at things like Hootsuite. And yes, you can pre-schedule tweets in Hootsuite. okay, and it's great. And but the problem is you have to pick a date and a time and put it in there. There is an ability on the paid version to load spreadsheets up so you can bulk upload them in advance. But if you have the same tweet in there twice, it stops you doing it. So then I got into this kind of mechanism where I was bulk uploading, and then a few weeks later I'd be bulk uploading the same ones again, and it was just becoming cumbersome. So I put my technical hat back on and I just started doing some research and seeing what else was out there, and that's when I discovered Buffer, which is a great step forward because it has a queue-based approach. You simply just fill a queue, but it didn't allow you to automatically recycle updates, and it only had one queue. And eventually I stumbled across Social and that's why I ended up focusing in on Social because it gave me the ability to segregate my queues, the types of content I was tweeting, drip feeding them at different times. I have some queues that drip once a week, no more than that, and others that drip every 2 hours. So, and overall, it just creates a nice active timeline. So for me, it was a case of having to, and I was sure that Twitter could get the reach out more, and then after that I got hooked, and then I started trying to figure out how to get more followers.
Okay, so just on frequency then, you mentioned one of your queues every couple of hours. So how many tweets a day do you do on average?
I typically it depends on those kind of tweets. I'm probably tweeting around 40 or 50 times a day. Okay, so that's quite a lot, but I haven't included retweets in there. And I haven't included something we'll come to in a minute, which is how I attract email subscribers to my email list. Okay, so but so the value-added content plus some promotional stuff around 40, so 10 promotional emails a day, and 30 or 40 interesting content is going out.
Okay, just closing my calendar down so it doesn't make a nasty noise at us again about appointments. All right, I know it's a bit of an area, it's a bit of an art rather than a science, frequency, and you have to make a judgment about it. And I guess ultimately you have to look at the results you're getting and unfollows to really try and spear that and work out where your sweet spot is in terms of frequency. And you talked about an 80-20%, so 80% should be of interest, of value to people, and 20% should also be of interest and value to people, but it's basically selling your product or letting people know that you've got a book.
Yeah, absolutely right. And if you get that right, then the volume just means, because a half-life of a tweet on Twitter is getting shorter and shorter. It becomes a much busier time, so it actually pays you to tweet more because you've got more chance of catching somebody on their timeline than you do in any other way. So if you only tweet once or twice a day, the odds on you've got 1,000 followers, the odds on all 1,000 of your followers seeing it are pretty slim. So you kind of have, if you want to get the word out in a nice way, then you have to increase your frequency. The downside of that is if you're only tweeting with your family and friends, your timeline starts overtaking theirs. And you kind of have to accept that they may not like it.
I should say it's at James Blatch, by the way, in case anybody wants to up that follow. That's the other thing.
I'll follow you now.
There you go. Thank you, Ian. Get yourself a podcast and tell people to follow you. Okay, shall we? We need to gravitate towards mailing lists, which obviously is the ultimate aim for us as authors, is to try and get names onto our mailing list, or it's certainly a significant aim for us. So how does this mesh with that, and when do you do that transition? So that's part of the 20% of tweets, I guess?
No, let's it's kind of special. So this isn't in the book, but anyone who reads a book can subscribe to the mailing list at the back, and then I send you another chapter that I will have a second edition at some point. So this is a technique I discovered after writing the book in April 2015, and it works really well. So the idea is fairly straightforward in principle. So let's be clear. So what I'm talking about doing is using Twitter is using Twitter to ask somebody to join my mailing list. Okay, in the same way on Facebook ads, we have lead gen ads, and the link takes you either to a landing page, or you can within Facebook, the Facebook user can give you their Facebook email address, and it automatically flows through to your mailing list. Okay, so it's the exact same thing on Twitter, but being done organically, and not being done through Twitter advertising, which is essentially where you explored when you put the Twitter advertising course together. Okay, so the way this works is, let's see, let me do it from from a reader's point of view. I'll try and describe it that way. So I'm a reader, and for whatever reason, I've chosen to follow Ian Sutherland at Ian Suth. Okay. Maybe it's because he followed me first. Maybe it's because he retweeted me. Maybe it's because he wrote something interesting, and I thought, you know what, I'll follow this guy. Okay. So I follow Ian Suth, and great. End of. About an hour later, I'll actually receive a reply tweet or a mention tweet, okay, to me, okay, from Ian, and it's in a special format. But I notice it as the reader because it's a reply. And, you know, if you're a normal user on Twitter, your notifications area, you see the number go up, and so it really stands out. It's not a direct message, because there's far too much spam in direct messages if you've looked at your direct message feed. This is an @ reply. So I see the @ reply, and it says, reader, whatever my Twitter handle is, thanks for following me. Would you like a free book? Okay, here's a free book, or it's actually written more eloquently than that. But anyway, that's in the form.
I think for those people who are watching this on YouTube, I might be able to bring this up, and because I have followed you, and I'm going to scroll back through my replies because I did notice it come up. So, but carry on, and I'll see if I can bring it into screen at some point.
And so what happens? It comes up, and it's not on top of it just being a tweet. It's actually in a special format. Okay, and it looks quite interesting. It's got a graphic in it. It's got some words around it, and the technical term is it's a Twitter lead gen tweet. Okay, which is I know you know about because that's what you used in the advertising side. So I see that as the reader, and I think, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I will have a nice book for free. Okay, and there's two things I can do. I can either hit subscribe, and there's a button right within Twitter, so I could be on my phone and press that button, and it will say, do you want to share your Twitter, the email address that you've registered to Twitter with Ian? And I say yes, and that's it, done. And I've now joined Ian's mailing list, and within a minute or two, I'll automatically get an email with links to the book for me to download from BookFunnel. Okay, so that's the process from a kind of a normal follower or Twitter, a reader's perspective. Okay, did you find that?
Yes,
tweet?
I did. So I found it, and when I clicked on it, it seemed to take me to your website. So
there's two things. So I've learned from experience that just relying on the Twitter lead gen card, some people are hesitant to click on the subscribe button within Twitter. That they're not, you know, they look at it suspiciously. Some people are fine with it. So what I've done is I also include another URL within the tweet text, which is a backup, and that takes you to a landing page on my website. Okay. Where you can then sign up in the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Okay.
So I get roughly a 50% through Twitter lead gen cards directly, and 50% through the landing page, but all 100% from Twitter.
Okay. Yeah. So that's automated, obviously.
Yeah. So the way, right, let's go back to how have I set this up? Okay. So the first thing to do is to create the lead gen style tweet. You actually have to go into the advertising side of Twitter. Okay. So you have to go in there, register your account. To do that, I believe you have to register a credit card, but you don't have to spend any money, so it's okay. And once you've done that, that then opens up the ability to create cards, Twitter cards, one of which is a lead gen card. So you have to do that step first, create a lead gen card, and depending on your mailing list provider, whether you've got MailChimp or ConvertKit or whatever, then the way that you link that to your mailing list, there's instruction. All of the mailing list providers provide you the instructions for how to do this. Okay, and you've got to provide the graphic and the text, and that's that. So that's the lead gen card created, and that takes care of the flow through to your mailing list. Okay, the next thing you then have to do is compose the well, I obviously have a landing page as a backup, so I need to have a landing page to send people to. Okay, and then the last thing is you have to then set up the automation so that it automatically sends the welcome tweet, I call it, to the reader, you know, within an hour or so of them following you. And there are a couple of tools on the market that will do this for you. One is called Sendable, and the other one is called Audience. There are probably others as well, but there's two that I'm fully aware of, and but they're you know, you have to pay for these. Okay, these aren't free. But if you do that, they have capability. They do other things, these tools, but with one of their capabilities is the ability to send this mention tweet. There are hundreds and hundreds of tools that will do auto DMs, so auto direct messages, but that's pretty much pointless. You need this to be an @reply.
Okay.
For it to work as a Twitter lead gen card. So if you use one of those two tools or find another one, then the process, and then all you do, and then what happens is within those tools, you then set up tweet variations. Okay, so I then set up about 20 or so different versions, different text versions, different ways of saying hello. Would you like a free book? But the reason for that is so that you're not tripping Twitter up, and it chooses them randomly each time you have a new follower. Okay. And that's so you're not tweeting the same stuff.
And is that where you put the mix of links that go to your landing page or the Twitter lead card?
No, all 20 have landing page and the lead gen card in them.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so you make sense, the Twitter lead gen card, at the end of the day, all it really is another URL. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that Twitter recognizes a special format URL, then displays it in a different way as a lead gen card. So essentially, you're composing a tweet with two URLs in it. Okay. Yeah. That's certainly the way I do it.
Okay.
And then, so you do that, and then every time someone follows you, it randomly chooses one of the 20 variations, and then sends that in an @reply format, so they see it in their notifications. Okay.
Yeah.
And the ratio you get of followers to email subscribers varies. The range is between around sort of 3 to 15%.
Okay.
Okay. It's not a high conversion, but bearing in mind, other than the use of the automation tool, you're not paying for this. You're not paying for Twitter advertising here. So as long as you're driving enough followers on a daily basis, if you're getting 100 followers a day, and then actually that should convert down to anywhere between 3 and 15 new email subscribers. Okay. Now you can't, unlike Facebook ads or perhaps Twitter ads, you can't scale it much more than that. Okay. Simply because there's that limit of how many people you can follow in the first place, and all the traffic that you put out to attract new followers, to then hit them with a welcome tweet to then get that ratio. So it's a nice technique but over a year, if you're getting 10 followers a day, 10 email subscribers a day, it builds up. Yeah, so my email list is well over 5,000, and I've been doing this for a year.
And in terms of
Twitter,
brilliant. And in terms of tracking that, obviously, if you're using the Twitter ads platform, you get all their analytics. I'm assuming they still work despite the fact you haven't actually paid for this campaign. Can you still use it to track how many people have clicked on the links?
You can track that, yeah. So you can track how many click on the link, but then you can compare that to how many actually subscribe.
Yeah, you can do that.
So you can do those kind of things, but you can't do much more. They don't open up the full demographics that you see when you're doing the advertising. Okay,
so you do need to set up a Twitter ads campaign account. And I know there's an email exchange with one of our students the other day because in the course we recommend you create a Google AdWords account so that you can access some stuff which you're going to use for free without running a campaign. And Google AdWords is a bit naughty because it forces you to set up a campaign as part of your setup, but you can pause it immediately so it doesn't send even a single impression out. And I know some people are hesitant about this, but you know what? It's Twitter and it's Google. These are not corporations that are going to rip you off, at least not in that way. They're not going to force you or trick you into spending money. So just don't hesitate about that. You can put your credit card up, your details, set up your Twitter ads campaign, and never run a campaign. And apart from getting the odd email from them saying, why don't you run a campaign, that will be the only downside of that. So don't worry about that, I would say.
Agreed. So that's how it works, and it's a very nice organic way to drive traffic through to your mailing list. And then from there, it's business as usual. If you've also got all the other tweeting going on, you're doing your regular following every day, you'll drive new followers, which will then convert some of those into email subscribers.
Yeah. So obviously in your book, you go into a great amount of detail about this, and people can follow that. I'm very happy for you to plug that, Ian. So just give us the details of your book again.
Yeah, so the book is called Advanced Twitter Strategies for Authors, okay, and under my name, Ian H. Sutherland, on Amazon. Okay. So or everywhere, on all platforms.
Yeah, on all good retailers. And you very kindly put together a crib sheet to go along with this interview so people can follow it. And there has been quite a lot of detail in there. And as I say, the address for that, if you want to download that crib sheet, just pop over to selfpublishingformula.com/Twitter Ian, which is Twitter's Ian's new name. And it's Ian without two I's, Ian with the one I, I-A-N.
Ian, I-A-N, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There's one last thing I'd like to say, because having talked through all of this, right, I'm very keen to get across I've talked a lot about automation and how automation can help you, okay? But if that's all you do, as far as I'm concerned, you failed, okay? Because, yes, you've got the word out, you've got a bigger following, you've got some subscribers, but you absolutely still need to remember that Twitter is a social media place and you have to be social, okay? So I still go on every day and I make time every day to interact with people personally, okay?
Yeah. Because
of all of the automation I do, my tweet stream, I can't keep up. I couldn't possibly keep up with it. Without 100,000 followers, it just refreshes all the time. I use tools like, I use TweetDeck, but you can use Hootsuite in its free mode, and you can set up columns filtered on certain things, like the mentions to you. You can filter on lists. So I set up lists of people that I really am keen to know what they tweet about amongst my 100,000. I really want to know about those people and what they're saying so that I can interact in conversations. So I strongly recommend that you don't turn yourself into a bot, which is what this is entirely capable of doing, that you remember that it's very important to engage personally with people by talking and replying to people and also initiating conversations.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no excuse for not doing that. And I can tell you from my old job I would occasionally stand next to, I'd interview celebrities, and I'd see their phone when, these people have hundreds of thousands of followers, sometimes a million, and their mentions are chaotic. You can't, every time they breathe at their Twitter account, 1,000 people immediately reply to them. But each one of those, at least the good ones, the kind of people who are doing, if I was interviewing them, it's probably because they were out there doing something in the community. They'll get on there and they will interact, and the ones that catch their eye that they think are quite funny, they'll go back to them. And in the early days, Stephen Fry used to reply to every single person who tweeted him, and that included me in the early days of Twitter. I've got a reply from Stephen Fry on my mentions.
You press to get one now. I believe he stopped using Twitter.
he has. You won't get one now, and he stopped before once he went north of 1 million followers. He's now north of 2 million, and as you say, he's come off for his own mental health reasons, I think, for his particular circumstance. But so if those guys can do it, you can do it as well, and absolutely keep it a lively and engaging place, and that's going to be the heart of why people would want to follow you in the first place. So, yeah, that's great. It's a detailed area, Ian, and I know we've skimmed across it really, but do you know what? For me, where I am sitting, and I'm sure for our audience, it's been gold dust, really. It's been really valuable. And we want...
That's good. So,
go on.
There's one other thing, though, in case people are daunted by all of this, and yes, you can buy the book and read the book and try, and I give you guidance on how to set all this up. But just so you know, I am launching a service this month. Okay, that I've been in beta test for the last 4 months with 12 authors, one of which is Mark.
Yeah.
And I've figured out a way to scale these techniques so that I can do it on behalf of other authors in a way that scales, okay, and still leaves me time to write. So I can get all this stuff set up and so on. So I've proved it over the last 4 months. For the 12 authors, we've grown their accounts by a total of 75,000 followers.
Wow.
Which is about 1,500 followers per author per month. So it's quite significant. Okay. So that's a new service that's being launched towards the end of January. And if anyone's interested, it's at authorplatformsidekick.com.
So I wasn't sure how secret that was. I was going to mention, but obviously you're now, because I know you've been doing this in the background and working with these hand-selected authors to test the platform, but you're going public with that now, and I'm
going public, and then pretty much in 2 to 3 weeks it'll be live. There's a waiting list there at the moment, so if anyone's interested, they can sign up. But it looks like it works. It looks like it'll be a valuable service.
Yeah, and this obviously be a subscription model for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a monthly subscription model. And there's different levels depending on how far people want to take it. They don't have to do the whole thing, but it includes the ability to drive email subscribers.
Okay, well, again, we've got the stuff you've given us for the download, but if we make sure all that's included, that link and that Twitter ad, we'll make sure that's all there. So if people want more details of where to go for that, to subscribe to that, to get the book, etc., as I say, selfpublishingformula.com/Twitter Ian. Twitter Ian, it's been brilliant.
My new name.
we had a slight issue. We had to get you scrabbling from your house to your parents-in-law's house, which is where you are now. You had this really cool Jaws poster behind you, and now you've got I'm sure a fascinating 17th century scene with chickens, I think, behind you.
It's the Battle of Rorke's Drift.
Oh, is it? They're South African campaigns, is that right? If you're
I don't know.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. If you're not watching on YouTube, you don't know what we're talking about, except for Ian has gone out of his way to make sure this interview has happened today. Ian Sutherland, I told you get value out of this episode. Some of the tricks sort of quite intuitive and simple. Others you'd not necessarily would think about, but clearly effective, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a good demonstration of that. I beta tested his new service for him, and as he said in the episode, I think I added double the size of the list, up to about 10,000 over the course of the experiment. But also, most importantly for me, added a couple of hundred subscribers, all completely automated at no cost. Very efficient. And if you can get a few ways like that to kind of passively build your list, so Facebook being one way, Twitter being another way, before you know it, you find you've got 500 a month, 600 a month. Then when you add in paid advertising and organic growth through back of book links, product pages, you can very quickly find you up to 4 figures a month, and that's when you start to really start rolling. So yeah, really, really useful. Definitely something that you should consider adding to your armory.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want the detail on that, all the breakdown of what Ian was talking about and some step-by-step guidelines on how to move forward with that, you can get the PDF download that we've put together for you for this episode. If you go to selfpublishingformula.com/download49, all one word, download 49. And as Ian mentioned, he's got this service he's developing at the moment, a kind of bespoke one-to-one service that you can subscribe to if you contact Ian. He's trialed it. You were one of the beta users there, Mark, though obviously he's going to charge for this in the future, and he's got a book as well, so all of that information you'll find on the download as well. Look, that's it from this episode. That's 49. We get to our half century next week, which should be, I don't know what to do. I mean, in cricket you just sort of stand there very politely and wave your bat in the air for half a century. What should we do? Should we have party poppers or?
We're much more reserved than that.
Yes,
I think we'll just, we'll motor on.
We'll motor on
gracefully.
We may look very similar.
Probably will.
We may look very similar to when we get to number 5. Oh, whose phone's making a noise? And John Dyer behind the cameras ruins everything. Okay, thank you very much indeed for listening. Don't forget the download. Visit our webpage, selfpublishingformula.com/download49. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingformula.com for more information, show notes, and links on today's topics. You can also sign up for our free video series on using Facebook ads to grow your mailing list. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.